Okay, let's just continue. So basically, in this lecture, I would like to show you how to design your own functions. So for example, the function that we used last time was actually it's a built-in function. It's so let's just run this built-in function called round. So let's say the price is equal to 0. So by the way, this is a Python shell. The price is equal to 0, right? And then what? Price is equal to round. So round is a Python built-in function. Okay, round. The example was a 6.8275, and then to the decimal 2-digit, right? So you run this, and then print price. It's 6.83, right? But the thing is, this round is a Python built-in functions. And of course, int is another built-in function. That's int, let's say 6.823 to 6, right? So int is another Python built-in function. Because int is a function name. And then 6.86, this function int takes 6.86 as an input argument, and it returns a 6, right? But now, you can also design your own functions, okay? So for example, let's say you want to design a function, right? And then what this function does is take two inputs, two input integers, and then return, for the output is return the sum of these two integers. So basically your function, so what it does is add two input integers, right, two input arguments, and then calculate the sum and then return the sum. And then the function name is add2, right? So this is more like, the function name is add2, right? That's your function name. And then take two input integers, right? And then add these two, and then returns the sum. So let's say this is A and this is B. So basically what your function sum is going to A plus B, right? And then returns this sum. So this is what this function does. So let's just design your own function using Python. So let's just follow the syntax. First, you know that this function has a keyword, right? Definition. That's a keyword. And then you have a return. And then what you have, indentation here. Okay. Now, since you have a two input integer, right? Two input arguments, you typically use a variable A and variable B. So you have a variable A and variable B. And then also you have a variable sum. If the main function, the user of these functions provide, let's say, 2 and 4, for example, as input variable, then 2 and 4, right? And when you add this A and B, your sum is going to have a value 6. And then it's going to return this sum. So this function in this particular case is what? User enters your main function provide 2 and 4, right? And this is like A and B here. So A becomes 2 and B becomes 4, and then your sum is A plus B, which is 2 plus 4, right? So it's going to be 6, and then returns what? Returns a sum, which is 6. So return value is a 6. Okay, so next, And there's something called a main functions. So this main functions is basically needed to tell your Python program that, hey, this is going to be your starting point of your execution. So let's look at the example. So this is going to be your the first Python code which use functions. So let's say this is your whole function, whole program. And then you know that you have a main here. This is simply tells that this is going to be a starting point of your execution. And once you okay, so the Python is going to look at all these lines, right? And then once it see the main, it knows that this is your first execution point. And then this will call or invoke. So this will call or invoke this main functions. So this one, the main functions. So this main function is called or invoked by main. And then your sum, so there's a variable called sum2, the sum of the two, and initially it's a 0, right? And then this main function is also called this add2 functions, right? So this add2, right? So indeed this is going to call these functions add2, and also provide 2 and 4, right, as the values for a and b. So at this point there is a and b, and when this function is called add2, a becomes what? 2, and then b becomes a 4, because there's a 2 and then what? 4 are provided by this main function, right? And then there is another variable called sum. So initially sum was a 0, but the sum, right? The sum is, it becomes after this line of statement. So a plus b, which is 2 plus 4, right? The sum becomes a 6. And then it's going to return what? This returns sum, which is 6, right? So when this add function is executed as a result, 6 will be passed to this sum2. The sum2 is going to becomes 6, because add2 is returns the sum as a result, which is a 6, right? So the sum2 becomes a 6, and then it's going to print sum is sum2. So the result, this main function is going to print sum is 6, basically, right? So this is like one example which shows how to design your own function. In this case, you simply design what function called add2, right? So let's just execute this program. So this is a Python main shell. So go to File, New, and then definitions, add2, a comma b. This is input parameter. And then make sure that you put a colon, okay? And then the sum n equal to 0. Sum is equal to a plus b. And then you're going to return sum, right? So that's your first definition, right, of the function called add2. And def, the main, this is like you must have the main no matter what. So when you use functions, right, you must have a main functions. in the main function, and main function is going to invoke or the call this add to. So the sum2 equal to 0. The main function has its own variable called sum2. The sum2 is equal to what? Add 2 to 4, and then print sum is sum2 and then this is like your what? Starting point. The starting point of your program. Okay, so let's just run this. So let's say function add 2. Okay, so sum is 6. Okay, so let me just end my lecture here.